Christmas had always started the same way in our house. I'd wake up before sunrise, quietly make a pot of coffee, and stand by the living room window while the Christmas tree cast soft golden light across the floor. Linda would tease me for peeking at the presents like a little kid, even though we'd been married for 29 years. It was our tradition. Simple. Predictable. Comfortable. I thought that's what a good marriage was supposed to become. Comfortable. That Christmas morning, I walked into the kitchen expecting to find cinnamon rolls in the oven and Linda humming along with Bing Crosby. Instead, the house was strangely quiet. My coffee mug was already sitting on the table. Beside it rested a white envelope with my name written in Linda's neat handwriting. I smiled to myself. Probably another one of her sentimental Christmas letters. She loved writing those every few years, reminding me of vacations we'd taken, funny moments with the kids, and how quickly time had passed. I wrapped my hands around the warm mug, took a sip, and opened the envelope. The first words stole the air from my lungs. Petition for dissolution of marriage. At first, I honestly thought it had to be some kind of mistake. Wrong envelope. Wrong papers. Some bizarre misunderstanding. Then I reached the last page. Linda's signature. My hand started shaking. I heard footsteps behind me before I could make sense of what I was seeing. She stood in the doorway wearing the red sweater she'd worn every Christmas for as long as I could remember. Her silver blonde hair framed a face that looked calm, almost peaceful. Not angry. Not emotional. Just tired. I didn't want you opening those in front of the kids, she said softly. I stared at her. What is this? You know what it is. No, I said, my voice cracking. I really don't. She pulled out the chair across from me and sat down. For a long moment, neither of us spoke. The only sound was the old grandfather clock in the hallway counting off seconds that suddenly felt unbearably loud. Finally, I whispered, "Is there someone else?" She looked almost surprised. No. Then why? Her eyes filled with tears she refused to let fall. Because I can't keep pretending we're still married. I laughed. Not because anything was funny. Because my brain couldn't accept what was happening. What are you talking about? We live together. We eat dinner together. We raised 2 amazing kids together. We just celebrated Thanksgiving with everyone. We decorated this tree together last weekend. She nodded. I know. So where is this coming from? Linda folded her hands together as though she'd rehearsed this conversation 100 times. Michael, when was the last time you asked me how I was doing? I frowned. What? When was the last time you looked at me instead of through me? I don't even know what that means. I know. Those 2 words landed harder than anything else she'd said. I've spent years trying to explain it. I've worked 60 hours a week for this family. I know. I made sure we never missed a mortgage payment. I know. The kids graduated without debt. I know. We've taken vacations. I know. I spread my hands in frustration. So what exactly did I do wrong? Linda looked at me with a sadness I'd somehow never noticed before. You think love is a checklist. I opened my mouth to argue. Nothing came out. You've always been responsible, she continued. You've always been dependable. But somewhere along the way, you stopped being present. I was here every day. Were you? The question echoed through the room. I'd tell you about my day, and you'd answer emails. I was working. I'd ask if we could go for a walk. I was tired. I'd suggest we take a weekend trip. We'll do it next month. I'd ask what you were thinking. Nothing. Every sentence felt like a tiny crack spreading through glass. I stopped asking, she whispered. I thought everything was fine. I know. There it was again. Not accusation. Not anger. Just quiet certainty. You never yelled at me, Michael. You never cheated. You never lied. Do you know what's harder than living with someone cruel? I shook my head. Living with someone who's physically beside you, but emotionally somewhere else. I looked around our kitchen. The Christmas stockings still hung over the fireplace. Family pictures lined the hallway. Our granddaughter's handmade ornaments sparkled on the tree. Everything looked exactly the same. Yet somehow nothing was. Why today? I finally asked. Why Christmas? She took a slow breath. Because I promised myself I wouldn't spend another Christmas pretending. Before I could answer, headlights swept across the front window. Emily. Our daughter always arrived first. Panic rushed through me. They can't see this. Linda stood. They deserve honesty. They're here to celebrate Christmas. They're here because they love both of us. The front door opened before either of us moved. Dad? Emily called. Mom. Liam couldn't wait to open presents. Our 4-year-old grandson burst into the living room wearing reindeer pajamas, laughing as he ran toward the tree. His excitement filled the house like sunlight. For one heartbreaking moment, I wished I could freeze time. Keep him little. Keep Christmas whole. Keep my marriage from slipping away. Emily stepped into the kitchen carrying a pie. She stopped almost instantly. Her smile disappeared. Mom. Linda's eyes were red. The divorce papers still sat on the table between us. Emily looked from one of us to the other. What happened? Before either of us could answer, Jason walked in behind her carrying armfuls of wrapped gifts. He looked at my face. Then at the papers. Then back at Mom. What is this? No one spoke. Finally, Linda said quietly, your father and I are getting divorced. The room fell completely silent. Jason's expression hardened immediately. What? Emily simply stared, unable to process the words. You can't be serious, Jason said. I am. He looked straight at me. Dad, tell me this is some kind of joke. I wanted to. More than anything, I wanted to tell him his mother was overreacting, that we'd argue, make up, and everything would return to normal. But one look at Linda's face told me that wasn't true. For the first time in nearly 30 years, I realized my wife had already made peace with losing our marriage. The only person still living in the old version of our life, was me. The rest of Christmas Day passed in a haze. The presents were open because none of us wanted to disappoint Liam. Emily forced a smile every time he squealed with excitement, while Jason barely spoke at all. Linda stayed kind, patient, and composed, as if she'd cried all the tears she had months ago. I couldn't understand how she seemed so calm while my entire world was collapsing. After everyone left that evening, the house felt larger than it ever had. For the first time in decades, the silence wasn't peaceful. It was unbearable. Over the next few weeks, I noticed things I'd never paid attention to before. Linda had always replaced the burned-out Christmas lights without mentioning it. She remembered every birthday, every doctor's appointment, every anniversary card we ever sent. She knew which coffee mug I preferred and why. She kept extra batteries for the television remote because she knew I'd forget to buy them. None of those things seemed important until they disappeared. The house still worked. But it no longer felt like a home. One afternoon, I met my old coworker Richard Hayes for coffee. He'd retired a year earlier after his own divorce. As we talked, I finally asked the question that had been haunting me. Did your divorce feel like it came out of nowhere? Richard smiled sadly. To me, yes. And to your wife? He stirred his coffee for a long moment before answering. She said she'd been leaving for 10 years. She just hadn't packed her bags until the end. His words hit me harder than I expected. I don't understand how someone can stay that long if they're unhappy. They stay because they're hoping you'll notice. I looked out the cafe window at people rushing through the cold January afternoon. I thought providing was enough. It should have been part of it, Richard said. But people don't just want a provider. They want a partner. I didn't argue. For the first time, I couldn't. That night, I walked through every room in our house. Not looking at the furniture. Looking at the memories. I remembered Linda asking if we could dance in the kitchen while dinner cooked. I'd said I was watching the news. I remembered her inviting me to watch the sunset from the back porch. I'd answered one more work email instead. I remembered her birthday dinner 3 years earlier. She'd worn a new dress and asked if I liked it. I'd nodded without even looking up from my phone. None of those moments had seemed important. Until I realized they were. They weren't isolated memories. They were tiny choices. Thousands of them. Each one telling the woman I loved that something else mattered more. A week later, Emily invited me to dinner. After Liam went to bed, she sat across from me at the kitchen table. Dad, can I ask you something? Of course. When Mom tried to talk to you, did you really hear her? My first instinct was to defend myself. Instead, I thought about the last 29 years. I heard her words, I admitted quietly. I don't think I heard her feelings. Emily reached across the table and squeezed my hand. She never wanted perfection. What did she want? You. That single word stayed with me for days. I couldn't undo the past. But I could stop pretending it hadn't happened. The divorce process moved forward. Linda rented a small townhouse across town. We divided furniture, photo albums, and years of shared possessions with surprising civility. There were no shouting matches. No courtroom drama. Just two people acknowledging that love had quietly slipped away while neither fully understood what was happening. Instead of burying myself in work, I retired 6 months earlier than planned. Not because life was over. Because I wanted to learn how to actually live it. I started volunteering at the community center, helping teenagers prepare for job interviews. I reconnected with old friends. I called Jason just to ask how his week had been instead of launching into advice. I visited Emily simply to spend time with my grandson. For the first time in years, I listened more than I spoke. Spring arrived. Then summer. One afternoon, Linda called. We need to meet and sign the final paperwork. We chose a quiet coffee shop halfway between our homes. When she walked in, she looked lighter. Not happier because she'd left me. Just at peace. We talked politely for a few minutes before the paperwork arrived. After we signed the last page, I folded my hands and looked at her. I owe you something. She waited. I'm sorry. She didn't answer. Not because she was angry. Because she wanted to know if there was more. I spent months trying to figure out what I could say to convince you to come back, I continued. And I realized that was still about me. A faint sadness crossed her face. I can't change 29 years. I can't give you back all the conversations I ignored or the moments I missed. But I finally understand what you were trying to tell me. She remained silent. I thought loving you meant taking care of everything around you. I smiled weakly. I forgot to take care of us. For the first time since Christmas morning, tears filled Linda's eyes. Thank you, she whispered. I don't expect anything. I know. Those familiar words sounded different this time. Not distant. Gentle. Hopeful. As we stood to leave, she surprised me by giving me a brief hug. It wasn't the embrace of a wife returning home. It was something quieter. The embrace of two people who finally understood each other. Whether our marriage was truly over or whether life might one day write another chapter wasn't the most important question anymore. Because real change isn't measured by whether someone comes back. It's measured by whether you become someone worth coming back to. That Christmas morning, I thought I'd lost everything. Looking back now, I realize I lost the version of myself that believed love could survive on good intentions alone. The greatest gift I received wasn't forgiveness. It was clarity. And sometimes clarity arrives wrapped in the kind of pain you never would have chosen, but desperately needed. If this story has taught me anything, it's this. Don't wait for divorce papers, an empty chair at the dinner table, or years of quiet disappointment to ask the people you love how they're really doing. The smallest conversations, the simplest moments, and the choice to truly listen are often what keep a family together. I learned that lesson on Christmas morning. I only wish I'd learned it years earlier.